Chapter 2. The man who stepped out of the SUV was not what Denise expected. She'd braced herself for a suit. Gray, probably. Some forgettable bureaucrat with a forgettable face and a business card from an agency that didn't officially exist. That's how it worked in movies anyway. That's how she'd always imagined the government showed up when it wanted something from you. Instead, she got a tall and broad-shouldered man in his early 40s with close cropped hair and deep brown skin, wearing a navy peacoat over dark jeans. He moved like someone who'd been trained to move, efficient, aware of his surroundings. But his face was open, almost friendly. He paused at the end of the walkway and raised one hand, palm out. "I come in peace." That's what the gesture said. Whether it was true remained to be seen. "Miss Carter?" His voice carried across the yard without shouting. "My name is Calvin Kirsch. I'm not here to cause problems. I just want to talk." Denise stayed on the porch, one hand on the doorframe. Behind her, she could feel Dr. Marsh hovering in the hallway. Deon had moved to the window, watching through a gap in the curtains. "You could have called," Denise said. "Would you have answered?" "No. That's why I'm here in person." Kirsch smiled, and it was a good smile. Warm, self-deprecating. The kind of smile that made you want to trust someone. Denise didn't trust it for a second. "May I come in? I promise I'll explain everything." "You can explain from right there." Kirsch nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that too. He glanced at the neighboring houses, the Jeffersons' place with its overgrown azaleas, the Morrisons with the basketball hoop, and Denise understood. Whatever he had to say, he didn't want to say it where anyone might hear. "I work for an agency that monitors unusual phenomena," Kirsch said carefully. "We became aware of your son approximately 8 months ago. We've been watching from a distance, making sure he was safe." "Safe from what?" "From people who might want to exploit his abilities." Kirsch's eyes moved past her, toward the window where Deon stood. "There are others like him, Ms. Carter. Children and young adults who can do things that science can't explain. Some of them have already been approached by parties whose intentions aren't as benevolent as ours." Dr. Marsh stepped onto the porch beside Denise. "Approached how?" Kirsch's gaze shifted to her, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Calculation? It was gone before Denise could read it. "Dr. Marsh," he said, "I was wondering when you'd show yourself." Marsh stiffened. "Have we met?" "No, but I know your work." He paused. "All of it?" The implication hung in the air like smoke. Denise watched Marsh's face go carefully blank, the expression of someone who just realized they were standing on thinner ice than they'd thought. "I'm here to help," Kirsch continued, returning his attention to Denise. "I know that's hard to believe. Government shows up at your door, says trust me. That's not exactly a winning pitch, especially not." He paused, and Denise saw something genuine flicker across his face, especially not for folks who look like us. It was a calculated thing to say, and Denise knew it. But that didn't mean it wasn't also true. "What do you want with my son?" she asked. "To understand what he knows. To protect him from people who'd use him as a weapon, and—" Kirsch hesitated, choosing his next words carefully. "To prevent something from happening that none of us fully understand yet." Behind her, Denise heard the soft tap of Deon's finger on the letterboard. She turned. Her son stood in the doorway now, the board in his hands, his dark eyes fixed on Kirsch with an intensity that made the air feel thicker. He knows more than he's saying. Denise looked at Kirsch. My son says you're holding back. To his credit, Kirsch didn't flinch. Your son is perceptive. Yes, there are things I haven't told you. Things I can't tell you, not yet. Not until I know I can trust you. Trust us? Denise let out a sharp laugh. You show up at my house, tell me you've been watching my child for 8 months, and you need to know if you can trust us. It's not a one-way street, Miss Carter. I'm asking you to consider that the people I work for might actually want to help. In exchange, I'll tell you what I can, when I can. He spread his hands. That's the best I can offer right now. Deon's finger moved again. He's not lying, but he's afraid. Denise studied Kirsch's face. Afraid of what? The government he worked for? What Deon could do? Or something else entirely? Something connected to the fold, the Natura, the boundary that was breaking. Afraid of what? She asked, not sure if she was asking Kirsch or her son. Kirsch's jaw tightened. For a moment the professional mask slipped, and Denise saw exhaustion underneath, the kind that came from carrying something heavy for a long time. Something's coming, Ms. Carter, he said quietly. Something none of us are prepared for. Your son knows it. Dr. Marsh suspects it, and I've seen enough to be terrified of it. He paused. I'm not your enemy. I'm not even sure I'm on the right side, but I'm trying to make sure there's still a world left when this is over. The words landed heavy in the afternoon air, and then Denise felt it. A chill, not from the wind. There was no wind. It started at the base of her neck and rippled down her spine, raising every hair on her arms. The temperature hadn't changed, but something in the air had. A pressure, a presence. She saw Dr. Marsh shiver and wrap her arms around herself, saw Kirsch's hand move instinctively toward his hip, toward a weapon he wasn't wearing before he caught himself. And beneath it all, so low, she almost thought she'd imagined it. A hum. Not mechanical, not electrical. Something older. Something that vibrated in her chest like a second heartbeat. Denise turned to look at her son. Deon stood perfectly still, his eyes half closed, a faint smile on his lips. Not afraid, not even surprised. He looked like someone listening to a familiar voice from far away. Deon, she whispered. Baby, what is that? His finger found the letterboard without him even looking at it. They're here. Out of the corner of her eye, Denise saw something move. A shape at the edge of her vision, tall, indistinct, there and gone before she could turn her head. She spun toward the living room window, but saw only the curtain swaying gently, though no window was open. Jesus Christ, Marsh breathed. Kirsch had gone very still. His eyes swept the room, professional, assessing, but Denise could see the tightness in his shoulders, the controlled fear in the way he held himself. This is what you were talking about, he said to Deon, not a question. The fold, they're coming through, right now. Deon's finger moved. Not through, just close. Watching. Watching what? You. The hum faded. The chill lifted. The pressure in the air released like a held breath. But the feeling remained, the sense that something vast and patient had just turned its attention toward them, considered them, and decided to wait a little longer before making its presence fully known. Kirsch let out a slow breath. When he spoke again, his voice was steady, but Denise could hear the effort it cost him. I think, he said carefully, I'd better come inside after all. They sat in the living room, Denise and Deon on the couch, Marsh in the armchair by the window, Kirsch perched on the ottoman like he was ready to move at a moment's notice. The afternoon light slanted through the curtains, catching dust motes that drifted in patterns Denise tried not to find meaningful. "Start from the beginning," Denise said, "and don't leave anything out." Kirsch glanced at Deon, then back at her. "How much do you already know?" "Assume nothing." He nodded slowly, organizing his thoughts. 14 months ago, there was an incident at a government research facility in Nevada, codename Meridian. The project was studying communication patterns in non-speaking autistic individuals. On paper, it was about developing new therapeutic interventions. In reality, he paused. In reality, we'd identified a phenomenon we couldn't explain. Children who could share information without any physical means of communication. Children who knew things they had no way of knowing. "Telepathy," Marsh said flatly. "That's one word for it. The researchers preferred anomalous information transfer. Sounds more scientific, less likely to get your funding pulled." Kirsch's mouth twisted. The project lead was convinced it was neurological, something about the way these children's brains were wired differently. She thought if we could understand the mechanism, we could replicate it, Denise finished. Weaponize it. Some people in the program had that goal, yes. Kirsch met her eyes. "I won't pretend otherwise. The intelligence applications were significant." "And something went wrong," Marsh said. There was an edge in her voice. Denise remembered what she'd said on the porch. "I consulted on a research project. She'd been there, she'd been part of it, and she hadn't known the full scope of what she was involved in." "Something went wrong," Kirsch confirmed. "The children, all 12 of them, synchronized, simultaneously. Every EEG reading, every behavioral indicator, everything aligned at the exact same moment, and they started communicating, not with us, with each other, and with something else." Deon's finger moved. "The Natura." Kirsch stared at the word on the letterboard. "Is that what they're called?" "That's what they've always been called." "The Natura," Kirsch repeated slowly, as if testing the weight of it. "Aramaic?" Deon didn't respond. He just watched Kirsch with those deep, knowing eyes. "What happened to the children?" Denise asked. "The 12 at Meridian. Where are they now?" Kirsch was quiet for a long moment. "Relocated, different facilities. Some returned to their families with extensive NDAS and monitoring protocols. A few..." He stopped. "A few didn't handle it well. The experience changed them. Not all of them came back the same." "Changed how?" Marsh leaned forward. "What do you mean, didn't come back the same?" "One of them hasn't spoken, hasn't communicated at all since that night. Not through letterboards, not through any method. She just went silent. Another one developed abilities that went beyond what we'd documented before. Remote viewing, precognition, things that made our initial findings look like parlor tricks." Kirsch's voice dropped, and one of them started writing warnings, over and over, the same phrase for weeks. "What phrase?" Denise asked, though part of her already knew. Kirsch looked at Deon. "The boundary is breaking. They're almost through." The words hung in the air. Outside, a car passed. A dog barked. Normal sounds from a normal world that suddenly felt very far away. "So what do you want from us?" Denise asked. "What do you want from my son?" Kirsch reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a plain white card. No name, no title, just a phone number handwritten in blue ink. "Right now, I want you to call me if anything changes. If the Natura make contact again, if Deon experiences anything unusual, if anyone else comes asking questions." He set the card on the coffee table. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to consider that we might be on the same side. And what side is that? Marsh asked. Kirsch stood. For a moment he looked older than his years, tired, uncertain, carrying weight he couldn't put down. The side that wants there to be a tomorrow, he said. Whatever that looks like. He moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Dr. Marsh, when you're ready to talk about what really happened at Meridian, what you saw in the data that made you walk away, I'll be available, day or night. Marsh said nothing, but Denise saw her hands tighten on the arms of her chair. Kirsch let himself out. A moment later, the SUV's engine started, and then he was gone, leaving nothing behind but a card on the table and more questions than answers. Denise turned to her son. Deon, what aren't you telling me? Her son's finger moved slowly across the letterboard. When she read what he'd spelled, her blood went cold. The Natora didn't just notice what happened at Meridian, Mama. A pause. They've been waiting for it. Outside, the afternoon light was fading. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled, though the sky had been clear all day. And in the corner of the living room, just for a moment, Denise could have sworn she saw something watching them. Tall, patient, almost kind. She blinked and it was gone.